The pig was at it again, front hooves kicking up dry clay, snout plunging like a pickaxe, frantic and rhythmic as though something down there called to it. The sun hadn't crested over the distant buttes, but already dust curled up like smoke around the pig's hind legs. It grunted, snorted, and scraped, always in that same damned spot. Callahan stood on the porch, arms folded, one boot resting on the other, coffee untouched and cooling in his hand. He watched it in silence. This had gone on for weeks. He'd fill the hole. The pig would dig it out again, deeper every time. At first he'd figured grubs or some old root. Then maybe madness pigs were smarter than most people, and some got odd when left too long to their own devices. But there was something different now. Its grunts had taken on a strained urgency like prayer or warning. Even the other animals gave it space. Last night the dog barked till its throat cracked, standing by the fence, not daring to cross. Cal squinted toward the pit. It was just 5 paces from the tool shed, 10 from the barn, right beside the sweet gum tree that used to drop yellow leaves so thick you could lose your boot in them come fall. Now it was a dead stick in the ground. He hadn't touched that tree in years, not since he set the coffee down. Walked off the porch. The air smelled of old ash and cattle feed. The pig stopped when he neared, stared up at him, pink flesh muddy and panting. Behind it, the hole yawned 2 feet deep. Cal noticed something for the first time. That wasn't just dirt. That was red clay. Red clay only turned up when you dug past 5 feet. The pig had found something. The ranch had once been loud. Laughter in the mornings, boots stomping on the wooden floors, and music floating out the kitchen window. Real music, not the hollow whistle of wind through rusted wire. Now Callahan lived in silence so complete the tick of the kitchen clock sounded like a rifle. 7 years ago the world had gone quiet. That was when Clara disappeared. He still kept the ranch running, not for profit, not for pride, just out of habit. Cal had about 40 head of cattle, 2 donkeys, and a mule named Dustpan. He fixed fences that no one touched, trimmed grass around gravestones only he visited, and kept the windmill spinning just enough to fill the trough. He spoke to no one but the dog. And sometimes the pig. The pig didn't belong to him. It just wandered in a year back and never left. Cal had tried running it off, then ignoring it. Eventually he fed it a bit of corn. Now it slept in the barn and acted like it had always been there. Funny thing, the pig seemed to choose that exact spot under the sweet gum tree as its mission. He never understood why. Maybe animals knew things people didn't. Clara had been 16 when they fought, sharp-tongued and bright-eyed. She wore her mother's scarf and rode bareback like she'd been born in a saddle. She asked questions he didn't know how to answer about her mother's death, about what he was hiding, about the night a drifter came through and Cal sent him away at gunpoint. She'd cried that night, slamming the door behind her. The next morning she was gone. She left behind a music box. It sat on Cal's nightstand untouched, still wound from that morning. It played only when the sun hit it, just right through the dusty window. Sometimes at dawn it tinkled a few notes like a ghost remembering a song. Cal hadn't been into town in over 2 years. He got feed dropped off by a delivery man who didn't ask questions. His nearest neighbor was 3 miles east and never came by. Folks in Hollow Bell said Cal lost his mind, that he was keeping secrets. Maybe both were true. On the 7th anniversary of Clara's disappearance, Cal found her scarf folded under the floorboard of her room. It smelled faintly of cedar. He folded it again and tucked it in his coat pocket. He didn't know why. Oh, that night the pig dug harder than ever, and the wind howled so loud he could have sworn it was a girl's voice calling from the field. At 2 a.m., Cal stepped out onto the porch with the old Winchester and stared into the dark. The stars were cold. The hole was deeper. The pig didn't look up this time, just kept digging, kept scraping. Something wasn't right. Something was calling up from under the clay. The boy appeared the next morning just as the mist was rising off the fields and the pig took its usual place by the hole. Cal saw the smoke first, a faint, lazy curl drifting up from the far edge of his land near the old cattle trail. He figured it was some idiot hunter or a busted stovepipe in a passing wagon. He saddled Dustpan anyway and rode out slow rifle across his lap wind, nudging the brim of his hat. What he found wasn't smoke from fire, but from a boy. The child stood barefoot, wrapped in a soot-stained blanket, ash smeared across his cheeks like war paint. He couldn't have been more than 8. Thin arms, wide, unblinking eyes, a busted satchel dangled from one hand. The other clutched a red button. No shoes, no hat, no words. Cal dismounted 10 feet away. "You lost?" he asked, voice rough from disuse. The boy didn't answer, just stared at him, silent like something feral. Cal tilted his head. "You hurt?" The boy shook his head once slow. His lips didn't move. Cal sighed, thumbed the edge of his mustache. He didn't need this. The boy was trouble. All things from the trail were. Best thing was to send him off. Bring him to town and drop him with the marshal or church or whoever still bothered with orphans. But something in that silence, the way the boy stood like a soldier, turned to stone. It hooked under Cal's ribs. He motioned toward the mule. "You ride or walk." The boy blinked once, then looked at the satchel. It was worn, cracked, the leather nearly black with use. He handed it to Cal without a word. Inside was a broken music box, the same make as Clara's, and a locket shaped like a 6-pointed star. Cal's hands trembled. He dropped the satchel, stared at the boy. "Where'd you get this?" he asked, voice suddenly hoarse. The boy didn't speak. He opened his hand. The button-red metal tarnished sat in his palm. Cal knew it. He'd sewn it on Clara's riding coat himself when she was 12. It had been missing for 7 years. The pig let out a sudden squeal back at the house. The boy didn't flinch. That night, Cal gave the boy a bedroll in the loft above the barn. He made stew and left a bowl on the table. The boy didn't eat until Cal turned away. He sat with his back against the wall, knees pulled to his chest, staring at the shadows. He never said a word. Only once, just before Cal left the barn, the boy whispered something so soft it almost disappeared in the wind. Cal froze, turned. "What did you say?" The boy looked away. Cal stepped closer. "Say it again." But the boy just closed his eyes and tucked the red button into the pocket of his shirt. Outside, the pig squealed once more, longer, higher, as if it had struck something it couldn't dig past. Clay, stone, or bone. Cal didn't sleep that night. He sat on the porch with the rifle in his lap, the music box beside him. The boy's presence had stirred something thick in the air, like smoke from an old fire, or the scent of something buried too long. The dust came long before the sound, a rising wall on the northern trail, wide as a river and twice as mean. Cal spotted it through the spyglass, a dirty smear climbing the horizon like trouble on horseback. He counted 8 riders, black coats, broad hats, long rifles strapped to their saddles like they meant to use them. At the center rode a man with silver hair and a purple scarf coiled at his throat like a brand. Creed Ryman. Cal hadn't seen that bastard in over 10 years. Last time was in town during a land dispute that ended with a man bleeding under the church bell. Cal knew Creed by reputation before that, leader of the Hollow Bell Riders, a gang more organized than most and twice as cruel. They weren't outlaws for money, they were land thieves, record burners, liars dressed in lawmen's boots. If they wanted your land, they didn't ask. They just showed you paperwork you'd never signed, torched your fence, and dared you to argue. Those who fought back disappeared. Cal set the glass down. He walked into the barn where the boy sat quietly mending a piece of rope with fingers too careful for someone his age. "You stay here," Cal said. The boy nodded once. Didn't ask why. He never did. The riders reached the gate just as Cal stepped out. Creed smiled under that ridiculous scarf. "Cal Callahan," he said, voice smooth as varnish. "I'll be damned. You're still breathing." Cal said nothing. He eyed the man beside Creed, a younger fellow with a jagged scar across his jaw, rifle resting easy in his grip. "What do you want?" Cal asked. Creed dismounted like he had all day. He walked slow, boots crunching dry grass. "Looking for a girl. Or a woman now, I suppose. Name's Clara." Ring a bell. Cal's spine went cold. Why, she's wanted. Murder, theft, disruption of property. Also carrying something that don't belong to her. She's not here. Creed's smile faded just slightly. Now I heard different. Heard she passed through these parts not more than a week ago. Said she might have dropped something here. Maybe a boy. Cal didn't blink. No idea what you're talking about. Creed took one more step, close enough now for Cal to see the flecks of red in his eyes, the look of a man who never blinked first. Funny thing, Cal, he said. I remember when your girl ran off. Whole town talked about it. Now you and I never got along, but even I didn't think she'd vanish without reason. Then again, maybe she had one. Cal shifted his stance. If you're done insulting the dirt, you can ride on. Creed's eyes flicked past him toward the barn. Just need to take a look around. You step past that gate and I shoot. The younger rider raised his rifle. Cal didn't flinch. Creed held up a hand. Easy now. No need for fire. He smiled again. We'll be back. Maybe with a warrant. Maybe with fire. Depends what we find first. They turned slow. Creed looked back once. Red button, he said. Tell the boy if he can still hear his mamas running out of places to hide. Cal watched them ride off, dust swallowing them like ghosts. That night he didn't light the lamps. Just sat by the barn door with his rifle, the music box in one hand, the boy asleep in the loft above. The pig squealed again, louder this time, like it knew the storm was near. Cal walked over, lantern in hand. The pig stood at the hole sides, heaving snout raw from digging. The hole was 4 feet now. Something stuck up from the clay. Wood. Not old tree wood, but splintered coffin gray and unnatural. Cal's breath caught. He dropped to his knees, scraped with his bare hands. The earth came away slow, stubborn, like it didn't want the truth told. Beneath the top layer, he saw the edge of a box. A human box. The boy's satchel lay by the barn. Cal opened it again, took out the locket. Opened it. Inside was a photo, faded, water-stained, of Clara holding a baby. Her eyes were wide with fear. And behind her, barely visible in the blur, was Creed Ryman. Cal stared into the fire that night, the locket clutched in his palm. 7 years of silence, 7 years of hiding. But the past had dug its way to the surface with hooves, snouts, buttons, and blood. Tomorrow they'd return. And this time, they wouldn't ask. The morning came slow, heavy with heat and silence. Cal stood by the hole as the sun rose, a shovel in one hand, the rifle leaning against the fence. The pig had curled up in the barn, exhausted, eyes barely open. It had done its job. Now the rest was his. The clay was like stone. Each strike of the shovel rang out across the ranch like a bell. He peeled away layers of packed earth, his palms blistering, sweat soaking through his shirt. Beneath the 4th plank, Cal's shovel struck something hard. Bone. Pale against the red clay. He stopped, lowered himself, brushed gently with trembling fingers. A human arm, small, female, still wrapped in faded denim. Her wrist bore a bracelet of blue thread, the same kind Clara used to make when she was a girl. But this wasn't her. He saw that now. The jawbone was too wide, the hair too short. Cal dug further, revealing the chest. Then the ribs shattered and blackened around the edges. Burned, shot, or both. Whoever she was, she'd been buried in a box barely wide enough to hold her. Someone had wanted her forgotten. Cal found a second item tucked under the corpse's side, a rusted tin badge. Sheriff's star, the kind only handed out in Hollow Bell. He stood, blood rushing in his ears. The boy watched him from the loft window, silent as always. Cal didn't wave, didn't speak. He walked to the shed, pulled out kerosene, rags, gun oil. He wiped the Winchester clean and checked the chambers. Then he opened the wooden box under the cot, the one he hadn't touched since Clara vanished. Inside was an old Colt, a roll of deeds, and a photograph of her at 10 holding a piglet in her arms. The resemblance to the boy was haunting. Midday came with a sound Cal hadn't heard in years, hooves fast and loud. The riders. Again. Dustpan snorted in the pen. The dog whined under the porch. Cal stepped outside. Creed didn't wait at the gate this time. He and 5 men rode in like they owned the place, weapons ready, eyes scanning. Heard there was fresh digging, Creed said as he dismounted. Can't help but wonder what kind of man buries bodies in his backyard. Cal said nothing. The boy stood in the barn doorway now, holding the red button. Creed's eyes flicked toward him. There's the mutt, he said. Told you he was here. One of the riders raised his rifle. Don't, Cal warned. You shoot that boy, you better shoot me first. Gladly, the man said. Creed held up a hand. Easy. Let's not get messy too quick. He turned to Cal. You don't know what that kid is, do you? He's my blood. No, Cal. He's her sin. Cal raised the rifle. Back off this land. The standoff hung in the heat, buzzing with flies and tension. Creed smiled. Then let's cleanse it. He snapped his fingers. One rider lit a bottle flame, licking up the rag. Cal fired. The man dropped before the bottle left his hand. Chaos. The barn burst into shouts. The pig screamed. Bullets ripped the fence. Cal dropped another man by the well, then rolled behind the trough. Creed fired once the shot grazed Cal's arm, spinning him into the dirt. Blood soaked his sleeve. He crawled toward the barn. The boy was gone. Smoke billowed from the feed room. Fire caught the hay. Cal stumbled through the smoke, coughing half-blind. A rider grabbed his collar. Cal swung the butt of the Winchester into the man's jaw, felt the crack in his bones. He kicked the man aside, stumbled through the burning barn. "Boy," he shouted, "boy!" A flash of movement. The boy was crouched by the whole arms around the pig, trying to shield it from falling embers. Cal reached them, pulled him away just as the roof collapsed in the back. "Run!" he shouted. They sprinted toward the porch. Creed stepped into their path, gun raised. "I told you," he said, voice calm over the roar of fire. "She stole from me, and now you're protecting the last piece of her." Cal lifted his rifle. Empty. Creed smiled. "Goodbye, Callahan." But the shot didn't come. A squeal split the air. The pig, bloodied, limping, rammed into Creed's legs. He stumbled. Just enough. Cal grabbed the Colt from his belt and fired point blank. Creed dropped. Silence. Just fire now. Cal pulled the boy close, both of them coughing, stumbling toward the open field as the barn collapsed behind them. They reached the fence line, collapsed together. The boy sobbed, not loud, just small, shaking gasps. Cal held him tight. The pig limped over and collapsed at their feet, breathing shallow. Cal's arm bled freely. His lungs burned, but they were alive. The grave smoldered in the distance. Clay turned black. Ash fell like snow. The past was burning, but it was not done telling its tale. Not yet. The fire smoldered for 2 days. Cal and the boy camped beneath the stars, living off jerky and well water. The barn was gone, nothing left but charred beams and warped tools. The pig hadn't moved since the second night, lying curled under the dead sweet gum, its breath raspy, ears twitching only when Cal whispered to it. On the third morning, Cal rose early and walked back to the grave. He finished the job. Dug until he uncovered the entire box, the remains within shifting with every pull of the spade. He laid them out on a tarp, cleaned what he could. He found the second badge under the ribcage. Hollowbell Sheriff's seal burned black. And something else, a cartridge casing buried near the skull. Creed's gang had made a habit of staging their justice, shooting their victims with stolen authority. Cal recognized the pattern now. This woman wasn't just a victim, she was a message sent to Clara. When he returned to the boy, the child was sitting upright, holding the music box. It had started playing again, clear notes, almost sweet. Cal sat beside him, his voice rough. "She was trying to protect you, that's why she ran." The boy nodded, still silent, still staring into the wind. Cal held out the locket. This was hers. That man Creed. He wasn't just a gang leader, he was law once, sheriff before he turned. The boy looked at the photograph, touched it, then without warning whispered, "Mama." Cal's breath caught. He hadn't heard the boy speak since he arrived. The word felt like a crack in the sky, a soft breaking sound that let the sun through. "She left you with me," Cal said. "She knew you'd be safer here, safer with a man she once hated more than any." The boy looked at him. "You're—" My grandpa Cal couldn't answer, not for a long time. He looked away. "I was cruel to her. The day she left, I said things I never meant. I thought I was protecting her. But all I did was drive her into the fire." He pulled out the scarf, now tattered and stained, and handed it to the boy. "This belonged to your mother. She wore it every day." The boy took it gently. "What happened to her, I don't know." "Not yet," Cal's voice cracked. "But I'm going to find out." That evening, Cal hitched up the mule cart. loaded the grave's contents, bones, badges, casing, and scorched planks into a crate. He placed the boy beside him, handed him the music box, and lit the last of the lanterns. The pig watched them go, still unmoving. The trip to Hollow Bell took them until dawn. The town hadn't changed much, same leaning saloon, same crooked church steeple. But something had shifted. Word had spread about Creed. His body had been found burned and half-buried, rifle still in hand. Rumors rippled like wildfire, justice, revenge, curses. But no one had spoken the truth. Until Cal arrived. He went straight to the town hall, walked into the clerk's office, and dropped the box on the table. Creed Ryman killed a sheriff and buried her on my land. This is what's left of her. The clerk paled. Cal placed the badge and bullet casing beside it. He staged her murder, blamed others, then hunted them down, including my daughter. Clara Callahan, the clerk whispered. She's innocent, Cal said. And she's missing. You'll post it, spread it, search for her. Or I will. Behind him, the boy stood with the music box in his hands, its melody rising faintly. Townsfolk gathered as the news spread. Cal didn't wait. He turned, walked back into the sunlight, and led the boy toward the church. They lit a candle there. For Clara. For the woman in the grave. For the pig who never stopped digging until the truth was found. The past had burned, but now from its ashes a name could be spoken again. Clara Callahan. Innocent. Missing. Still out there. Maybe watching. Maybe waiting. Back at the ranch, the wind carried the scent of char and clay. The barn was a husk. The sweet gum tree scorched along its base had dropped its final leaf sometime during the fire. Cal stood at its roots, shovel in hand. He wasn't digging this time for answers or bodies, just peace. The pig had died the night they rode into Hollow Bell quietly. No sound curled under the stars, like it had simply gone to sleep. The boy found it at dawn. He didn't cry. Just sat beside it and ran his fingers over the bristles. Cal buried it beneath the same spot it had once dug with such purpose. No marker, no stone. Just earth over earth and a small red button pressed into the mound like a farewell. Cal didn't say much anymore. Words felt too heavy, too shaped by the years he'd spent silent. The boy spoke a little more each day, asking questions, whittling scraps of wood, naming the remaining cattle like they were old friends returned. One morning, Cal found him painting something behind the shed. A small cross, 2 names carved in crooked lettering, Sarah Bell, the murdered sheriff, and below it, Pig. No surname, just the title it had carried, as if that was enough. Cal didn't change it. He just nodded and left a stone beside the grave. That evening, the wind shifted. The wind, it carried a new sound, hooves. A single rider. Cal stepped onto the porch, rifle slung low. The figure slowed at the gate. A woman, thin, dust-covered. Her hair was tied back with a strip of faded red cloth. Her eyes were hollow, but she sat tall in the saddle. Clara. She dismounted slowly, eyes flicking to the barn's remains, the fields, the boy. Her voice cracked. Is he? Cal didn't answer. He didn't need to. The boy had already stepped forward, scarf in hand, music box under his arm. They stood a long time staring. No tearful reunion, no grand embrace, just breath shared and sacred. Cal turned away, gave them space. The sky burned orange behind the hills. He walked to the sweet gum tree and sat. The cross stood there now, 2 names, 1 truth. What had been buried was no longer silent. What had been lost had found its way back. Clara stayed for only 2 days. She said the road still needed her, that others needed to know what Creed had done, but she promised she'd return. The boy stayed. Cal taught him to ride to plant feed, to listen to the cattle's moods, and in the quiet, sometimes the wind still struck that old angle through the bedroom window. The music box would play a note or 2, not enough for a song. Just a reminder that something once broken still remembered how to sing. In the years that followed, the grave beneath the tree became a place of quiet pilgrimage. Riders came, some looking for Clara, some just to see the cross. None stayed long, but each left a token, a coin, a feather, a carved name, and the boy, now growing taller than the fence posts, kept them all. Not one asked why a pig had a grave. Not one ever laughed. In time they understood. Some truths are dug from clay. Some legacies are rooted in silence. And sometimes the thing that wouldn't stop digging wasn't just a pig, it was a soul trying to tell the truth. In the dust and wind of Hollow Bell, where silence once ruled and guilt had taken root, a boy watched the horizon with calm eyes. He held a red button in his palm, warm from the sun. And somewhere beneath that clay, something like peace had finally settled. Thank you for watching this story. If it moved you, if it stirred something quiet inside, consider subscribing for more Western tales just like this. We'll see you on the next ride.